My plan originally, like I bought all these old things with the intention of the upstairs would have an area for old computers that would actually be set up and you could actually play them, and I'd have basically what I imagine would be banquet tables, like from one end of the building to the other, and it would look like one of those old computer conventions, you know, when everybody would play D&D or whatever.
Sure.
So I want to actually have these set up and functional, so that you could play, you know, say like Zork, you know, or something. I don't plan on, you know, making them like fully restored, so you know you could play any game you wanted. But I want people to be able to try them out, and from you it'll be able to say like, you know, this is an Atari 800. Here's some of the games that were available for it. Sort of a mini homage museum. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of money when we were growing up.
Yeah.
At some point, my mom bought a 2600. I don't know where she got the money. But one of the games we got was Adventure, and it was just, that was my favorite game because there was no, the thing that I liked about it is there was no pace. Like you could just sit there and explore.
Sort of wide open.
It was like so different from every other game. Like there was no other game like it.
I agree.
It was so, and I'm not a big like fantasy type person. I'm more of a sci-fi person. But for some reason, Adventure and E.T. I also was a huge fan of E.T. Even though people hate it. If you
landfill.
So anyway, Adventure. I just had such fond memories of playing it. One of the things that I did at some point was like I found the source code, disassembled source code online.
So is that what you based the iPhone game on? You actually used the disassembled source code?
Yeah, back up. Before the iPhone even came out, I found the disassembled source code for Adventure, and somebody had commented every line of it, and I'm like, that is awesome. You can see exactly how it's thinking.
Right.
It's thinking. You can see exactly the logic for like what the bat does.
Sure.
And being a programmer, you know, I'm like going through the lines of code, and I'm like, yep, and you know, I could run the program kind of in my head. So I'm like, you know, what I want to do is I want to make this in C, just using this as a wireframe model that says, like, if somebody was going to write up like a proposal and say, you know, if the bat's in the room with, you know, this and a certain time, you know, not use the source code as
not a literal translation.
Yeah. But basically
as
like,
a framework.
Have it convey to you what it was trying to say. But in C, because C is portable, and I made it like completely platform unspecific. I wrote like I made everything that was platform dependent in a completely different file.
Okay.
So I just like basically took the logic of Adventure and put it all into a C++ file, C++, that I was kind of doing as like a documentation project that says, this is what Adventure would look like today if it were written in C++. This is like the guts. Like, I can't read the assembly, which is why somebody annotated it.
Right.
There's a lot of places in the annotation that says, I don't know what this does.
Right.
The C++ I can look at and people can read it. So that was my inspiration for that, and I made a Windows version. And
okay.
I started, and you can download that off my website.
I see.
So that was just kind of like I did that. I started learning Mac programming, and it was like a one-day effort to make a Mac version. It was basically like, okay, I got a window, let me wire up a timer, I'll compile in my adventure.c file, and it instantly ran, and I just had to hook up the controls.
Nice.
And it was like instantly. So when the iPhone first came out, and they released the SDK. Well, the first thing, the iPhone came out, and they didn't release an SDK. I'm like, I want to make games for this.
Right.
They released the SDK, and I was like determined to start programming for it because it just seemed like such a approachable, like, you can't really program for like the DS because it's cartridge based.
Sure.
It was the first time, and because of the App Store especially, it was the first time that they made it so that you could actually do this, right? You could make a program, and there was a mechanism for getting it to people.
Right.
I'm like, I gotta get in on this. So like the lowest hanging fruit was Adventure. I already had the source code. I didn't know a whole lot about the iPhone programming yet. So I'm like, let me make a window. got a timer hooked up, plugged the code in there, got the screen kind of sized. The controls were an issue because you can orient it the way that the TV is oriented is landscape, right? And I didn't want to lose. It looks so gorgeous on the screen, full screen. I didn't want to leave room for like leaving your thumbs on there. So I figured I'll do like there's that Labyrinth game that everyone was playing when the iPhone first came out. I'll do that. Like it'll just be like you're rolling the marble around, and that would work. And it took me a couple days. It was really easy to do. So that was the reason I did Adventure, because it was basically already created. And it was a good way for me to like get started and say, okay, I actually went through the process of getting the dev ID, getting the device, compiling it, getting on there, testing it, getting it submitted to the App Store, doing all the stuff that you have to do. It was actually, like I said, submitted. I did it as an exercise and because I thought it would be cool to see Adventure on the iPhone. I submitted it on a lark to the store. I honestly thought that they would just immediately say no. I will not deny that it is somebody else's property, and which is why I priced it at $0. I don't want any money for it. I just want it on the iPhone. If Atari wants to do it, I'll give them the source code. I want nothing for it. I got slide controls to work for Adventure, but it just never felt right because I wanted to keep Adventure. I wanted to keep the game accurate, which meant you can only kind of move or not move
specific cells, very digital.
And when you hook that up to the little slider, it's really hard to control. People don't really understand that. It's almost impossible to control. Games that are designed to use the little slidey thumb thing, it's more of an analog control. So I was thinking like, well, what would work? Let me start from the controls and go that way. Like, what would be a good all I have are these. I can touch the screen. What would be a good game? And a lot of the things have already been done, like topple. Those are the kind of ideas that start popping into your head. The one that appealed to me the most was like holding landscape, because I like landscape for gaming better, and use your thumbs like this. And I wanted to do. There were two games that I wanted to do. One of them was like a tank game, because all the early tank games had
the two sticks.
Two sticks, right? And I'm like, okay, that's a tank. And the other thing was I wanted to do Lunar Lander, and instead of having thrust and spin, it's if you could picture a lander having a thruster on each side, and you control it like that.
I see.
And you basically have to land it by like modulating the two. It would be really challenging, and I know I'd get a lot of feedback saying this is too hard, But for a certain number of people that would get it, like, I wanted to put. I'm still planning on doing this game, by the way. So excuse my tense. Like, so there could be levels that would have like a hook. Where you'd have to pick something up and like move it. If you've been to my site, you've noticed that I have a vertibird simulator, which is this old plastic helicopter that used to fly on a wire.
Right.
There was a hook, and you'd have to pick up an astronaut and stuff like that.
Yeah, I used to have one of those as a kid.
I have an OpenGL simulation of that, and yes, I'm not porting that. But
I haven't played that.
So I was thinking like a combination of that and like Lunar Lander. So like you have two thrusters. And you kind of have to land using that.
We all enjoyed, the Atari classic Battle Zone. Were you a maniacal fan of that, or was it more? I quite enjoyed it, but I
remember it was one of the first games I got, and when I got it, it was something like, I had a list of the games on my website, and it said Battle Zone, and under that I put Yeah Buddy. So it was like one of my and it made a huge influence on me when I saw it in the arcades, and I have two of them. It's one of the
very nice.
In fact, it is I have two. It's one of the very few games I have two of. So I think it was just I wanted to go with like a 3DE thing first. I was more confident that driving around with the thumbs would be cool than I was that I could make the Lunar Lander
dual thruster
thing seem cool.